My son lost control. The neighborhood were in fear of what he might do to me.
A victim doesn't want to be a victim. It's nearly destroyed me at a time in life when I should be concerned about retirement.
I am on Social Security, and that's it, my income. And he took it all.
Well, I didn't report it. You don't brag about being weak.
Elder abuse is a hidden problem. We have victims who are truly isolated in every way.
It's important that everybody involved in the court process understand that there are certain things that need to be done in order to provide access to justice.
We're in a misdemeanor court. A man comes up charged with simple battery, and he decides to plead guilty. He's 85 years old, a World War II vet, retired barber, and he gives me the story that his wife is in a nursing home, and he just got a little excited when she wouldn't listen and pulled her hair to get her to listen. And so I just gave him a fine and let him get on his way. Come to find out, his wife had been admitted to the nursing home because he had abused her and neglected her. Frankly, I was shocked. At that time, I didn't know what to look for. I didn't know to ask any questions about elder abuse or anything else. I had no training. So I just completely dropped the ball on that case.
Some elderly people don't have the ability to adequately protect themselves, and as a result of that, they do become more susceptible to crime and other abuse as compared to others. And it's because of that vulnerability that I think society has a special obligation to make sure that their rights are protected.
Elder abuse is mistreatment of older adults. It can take many forms. It can take the form of financial abuse, physical abuse, sexual assault. It can be neglect.
70 to 90% of the perpetrators of elder abuse are family members, loved ones, or caregivers. It's someone who's very important to this older victim.
Do you understand the charges, Mr. Touche? I see them all the time in juvenile court. You wouldn't think that'd be elder abuse in juvenile court, but a lot of grandparents are raising their grandchildren, and a lot of grandchildren in the teenage years are using drugs. So they're robbing their grandparents' Social Security checks, threatening and intimidating their grandparents.
I've interviewed women in their 80s and 90s who have just said to me, I can't believe my own grandson has done this to me. And then to think about putting them in jail, and there's so many excuses and there's so much love.
It's important that they be allowed to age with dignity. It's important that they be given as much autonomy as they are capable of, but still somebody has to step in and issue some orders to help protect them, sometimes even from themselves. Is it the state's intention to file an elder abuse protective petition?
Yes, sir. At this time, the state, go ahead with Madam Clerk and file it as petition for protective services pursuant to...
Elder abuse is underreported. Maybe 1 out of every 5 is reported. So in the last year, we served 520 victims, and if you multiply that times 5, it would mean that there's actually 2,500 plus out there. You just get the tip of the iceberg.
The person, for one, may not know about it. 2, because of isolation, may not be able to report it. Sometimes people don't even know to whom to report it. There may be some embarrassment, the fact that I'm 85 years old, I should know better. And it can be an intimidating process to sit on that witness stand and tell what happened to you.
They're afraid of the state stepping in and taking away their independence. That's the #1 fear of seniors, is losing their own independence.
They're being victimized, and they're embarrassed, they're ashamed, and they don't know what to do or where to turn.
We can, at the courthouse itself, make our facilities accessible and a friendly environment for people to come into where they feel that their concerns are the concerns of the court also.
The goal of this courtroom was to create a courtroom that was what we would call elder-friendly and barrier-free, because we wanted to make sure that everybody could have access to justice, and we didn't want physical barriers in the way for those individuals. We tried to be very intentional in the things that we did. For example, the air conditioning in this room is very quiet. The corners of the tables are rounded because if you have an elder person in the courtroom, a lot of times their skin is a little bit thinner, so that it's not a sharp corner if they bump into it. If the person's in a wheelchair or a scooter, the person can roll into the witness box without having to get out of the wheelchair or out of the scooter.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness with an exhibit?
Our hope also was that by building this room, we could educate others, including our students who will be future lawyers, and that what we have done will not stay unique to this courtroom and will get picked up with other courtrooms all over the country.
Seniors are no different than anybody else entering in to a protective order situation, whether it be domestic violence, civil harassment, or elder abuse. They are people in crisis, and they are very overwhelmed.
I was handling all the restraining orders involving both domestic violence, civil harassment, and I began to notice that the seniors were having difficulty coming to court. Their cases were getting mixed with others, and so I dedicated a special calendar. On Friday mornings, I handle what I call the Elder Protection Court. I selected 11 o'clock as the time for seniors to come in. Obviously, that helps them. They have more time to get dressed. They can get transportation arranged. And by putting them at a separate calendar, they don't have to sit through other cases. Their cases are given special attention.
He must stay 100 yards away from you, your residence, any vehicles you may own, and this order is in effect for 3 years.
He has a lot of personal property and everything in our basement where he lived. Okay. Is it okay for him to come by and pick things up? Or
only with an arranged date and with a civil standby.
Our primary goal was developing a system that seniors, when they entered the court system, could start in the beginning and end with a result, which was with either a restraining order, contact with the social service system, or contact with the legal service system. Just as in domestic violence, where our courts have provided services for people that are in intimate relationships, our services in the Elder Protection Court were modeled like those services to connect with the victim in many of these cases.
You have a problem with my issuance of the restraining order, correct? Could you tell me what
we found in our community is that we have a lot of services available to seniors and to dependent adults, but all of those services weren't necessarily communicating and talking with one another. So we had to be able to focus on how we could get all of the agencies to communicate with one another without undermining their own systems.
I developed an Elder Access Committee, which consists now of maybe 60, 70 people, attorneys involved in elder abuse, community organizers, head of senior centers, local politicians who are concerned, the probation department, adult protective services people, everybody who is concerned about elder abuse, and we meet quarterly.
You can work with the community, you can work with social services, you can do education to the public, and the senior gets the best of every single program.
I'm the administrative judge of probate, guardianship, and mental health in the 13th Judicial Circuit. Elder abuse in our court can be abused in the forms of neglect, lack of food, water, basic necessities of life. And it may or may not be attributable to another individual. It could just be the circumstances. That's when the court gets involved because we have an obligation to make sure these people are protected.
In the last year or so, her habits, house cleaning habits have declined. Okay.
The problem that I had was the amount of cases. I had 3,000 probate cases and 3,000 guardianship cases. And in guardianship, if it comes to court, I have to put someone in place to help that person. They have nothing here, they need help, there has to be something done. We pulled in a task force. The mission, look through the courthouse and find out what we need to do to make it more elder-friendly. And we went ahead through court administration and created an Elder Justice Center.
When people come in asking for a petition for protection against domestic violence, they go to the clerk's office. If they're over 60, then the clerk refers them up to my office. And that way I can meet with them individually rather than them being in a room, with a bunch of strangers filling out the petition.
One of the issues with the traditional court system is that the cases are very compartmentalized. And you might have an elderly person involved in a civil case and a criminal case and perhaps an adult protective service case or guardianship matter. Having something like an Elder Justice Center helps fill those gaps so that if an elderly person is coming for multiple court hearings, they might be scheduled on the same day just to avoid having to come back multiple times to the courthouse. I don't know. Our judges know that if there are some red flags, they can contact our office and we can pursue matters, make appropriate calls.
We try and involve adult protective services and the appropriate law enforcement agencies, and I'm on the lookout for other needs that the victim may have, such as who's going to get my groceries now that this caregiver abuser is out of the house. The courts can be mystifying. The courts can be intimidating. Going downtown can be mystifying and intimidating. So it's my job to know what's available in the community and to be able to make the appropriate referrals and see that you get service. I'm active in a lot of the groups that address senior issues in the community. And that's one of the goals of our program is to educate the senior public.
The way it's impacted my caseload is giving assistance to the victims, a lot of assistance to the victims that normally we couldn't do.
The more eyes and ears that you have looking at these files, because this file, it's not just a file. That file's a person. That person's out there. That person is the responsibility of the court. The more that you have looking into that, I think the better it is.
The court has a fundamental responsibility to make sure that all people in the community receive a quality of justice demanded by a great nation like America. And I think they should know that they have a fair chance, just like everybody else, to come into the court, and that they are going to be treated equally, and that they are going to be respected when they come into the system.